Hi, in this lecture you will learn how to handle the predefined exceptions. We know that the second type of exceptions is non-predefined exceptions. Non-predefined exceptions are the exceptions that not have any specific names in the Oracle server. There are about 10,000 of error codes that not defined in the database server. And we know that we cannot trap any exception with their error codes. Actually, we can do that with when others than handler, but this will be too generic and not so useful. In order to do that, we declare exceptions for these error codes and handle them with the names that we specify for these error codes. How? In the declaration section of our block, first we simply declare our exception variable. We write our exception name and exception keyword. We say that this name will be an exception. Then we assign an error code for our exception. We know that every exception has an error code, so we need to assign an error code for our new exception. We do that with writing pragma exception init keywords, and inside of parentheses we write our exception name that we specified above and the error code that will be specified for that name. Let me explain these keywords. In plsql, pragma is a compiler directive or hint, and it is used to provide an instruction to the compiler. With writing pragma, you say to the compiler that, "Hi compiler, do the things that I will tell you." In here, the thing is exception init. There are 4 more directives like exception init for the pragma directive, but they are not related with the exception subject. So what does the exception init do? It says to the compiler that, "Hi compiler, when you face with this error code, know that it has this name. And when I say this name, know that this name refers to this specific error code. I declare this name because I will use it in somewhere." Great. To define a non-predefined exception, we declare an exception name with the exception type first, then we assign an error code to this exception with using the pragma exception init method. But know that when your code finishes, this declaration will be gone. I mean, you will not be able to use your new exception name in another block. Don't forget that. Alright, now let's open up the SQL developer and see how we use it. Let's make a simple update in our plsql block first. Update employees, copy, set email is equal to null, where employee ID is equal to 100, and rn keyword. Now let's run it. As we can see, we had an error. ORA-01407 says cannot update with a null value. We know that this is not one of the predefined exceptions. To handle that, we can either use the when others than handler or we can define it. Let's define an exception for that specific error code then. I write declare and cannot update to null is an exception. In here, I declared an exception variable. Then I will specify an error code for the cannot update to null exception. So pragma exception init, and inside parentheses, first I write my exception name, then my exception code -01407. Now I will use this exception just like I used the predefined exceptions. So I come to here and write exception and when cannot update to null, then let's print something. Let's say you cannot update with a null value. Now let's run it. See that? Pretty simple. We can handle any specific error code with this way. So, as we defined an exception name for the error code 01407, can we use that exception name in another block? I said no. Let's check it. Now, let's delete the declaration section and run the query. As we can see, cannot update to null must be declared. So this is just like a variable name. It is specific for its block. Another block will not recognize it. Great. Now we know how to handle the non-predefined exceptions. You can do the same thing with using an if clause in when other than handler. For example, if SQL code is equal to my specific code, do something. If not, you can either raise the exception back or handle it. You don't know how to raise the exceptions for now. But anyway, this option will not be so beautiful. I recommend you to use pragma exception init to handle the non-predefined exceptions. This will be more informative and good looking. Alright, this is the end of this lecture. See you in the next one.